Yes, hi everyone. Great to be here. I've met so many of you already over these last couple of days. It's been amazing to speak to many of you and find out about your experiences and the tremendous things you achieve in education. Some of you look at me up here thinking, hey, I know this guy. He's the guy who presents the awards. You get to find out, woohoo! You get to find out now that actually that's not what I earn my living with. But I also do something else, which I'm going to try and talk to you in these next 25, 30 minutes. How and when we started our evolution and revolution in the classroom. So what do I want to talk to you about? I'll say a few more words about who I am when I'm not presenting awards. I'll talk to you a bit about our company, CJD. We're based in Germany. I'll tell you all about what we do and who we reach and what we offer. And then, of course, we'll get to the main topic of my talk, which is what did we do, like so many of you, when the pandemic hit us pretty unprepared, just like most of you as well, and how we responded to that. I want to take it a little bit further, though. I want to say and start talking to you and hopefully leave you with a few ideas and impulses and questions and perhaps things we can pick up in a conversation outside after this talk about how much further we really need to go and whether we've done enough to use this golden opportunity that the pandemic has presented us with. This sentence says it all. This is what motivates me to do what I do and to remain in education in the public sector. In a career that's been spanning over 20 years now, I've been in leadership. I'm passionate about change and transformation in education, but also in the public sector. I've worked as a social worker, I've worked as a leader in social care and in a business consultancy in the United Kingdom and in Germany. And I've stuck with the public sector and education for a reason, because I really believe in what we're trying to achieve. I mean, I've heard so much in these last 2 days already from yourselves and of all the corners of the world of what we're trying to do, and I believe this sentence is what it all boils down to. To lead a fulfilling life, it's really important that children and young people, everyone, is able to develop their true potential. And I believe it needs people like us to help young people to do this. So that's why I'm still in the game of education and social care. A few words about the company I work for. So currently I've said I've been a business improvement consultant and change and transformation advisor. And so I used to be on the other side of the table, telling CEOs and senior leaders in education and social care how they can transform the organizations, how they can make change stick. Now that I'm a CEO myself, I see that sometimes this is a little more challenging than we like to think. At CJD, we are one of the largest educational companies and social care companies in all of Germany. We employ a total of almost 11,000 staff across the whole of Germany. I'll show you a map a bit later on to give you an idea of the kind of services that we offer. We are also the largest provider of independent private schools in Germany, with over 50 schools from all the way up in the north to the south in Bavaria. Our guiding principle that was coined at the formation of CJD, we are a non-profit organization, so we are an independent trust, is no one should be left behind. We were founded in 1947, so for those of you who teach maths, you've worked it out. We've got a big jubilee this year at 75 years that we're celebrating. In modern world, so back in the day in 1947, there was a pastor in Germany who just after World War II, pictures that we are reminded of nowadays, unfortunately, as well. Went in southern Germany in Stuttgart along the train station and helped young people who basically had lost their parents in the war, and took them in and said, you shouldn't be left behind, you should be able to achieve your chance as well. In today's modern world, in modern Germany, that means for us that every person has the right to lead an inclusive life. Enabling this to happen is what we're all about. So that gives you a bit of an impression of the size and the width of our services. So schools is one of our major areas, and particularly in the region that I'm responsible for. It accounts for about half of all our staff and a third of our turnover, but we do so much more. We have kindergartens in Germany. We offer services for adults with learning disabilities. We have workshops. We offer child and youth support services at home in the community, but also residential. So we really cover, we have service users, people working with us from the age of a year and a half all the way up to our oldest member in our music academy, which is 97 years old. I've said already about 10,500 employees, 350 locations. We cater for 12,000 students every day, and our annual turnover is just over 660 million euros in 2020. Now, our region, and you'll find out that I'm quite passionate about the region in Germany where we're based, because I believe it's quite a special region. We have 600 employees. We are quite a small region in terms of geographical size, but we have a huge reach in academia. Oh, this wasn't working, sorry. That's us there in the map of Germany, for those of you. I'm sure you've all noticed instantly. Yes, and so as I've said, our mission is to support children and young people develop their true potential. This is one of the reasons why we're so passionate about getting the education thing right in our region. We are in northern Germany, few may know, but we are what you could call a Silicon Valley of production when it comes to digitalization and to e-mobility in our region. These are some of the partners that we work really closely with and that support us in our schools. We also have strong networks with universities, but of course a lot of the industry in our area is around Volkswagen, one of the largest, currently the second largest car maker in the world. They employ 100,000 people in our region and 660,000 people worldwide. In fact, they're the biggest employer in Europe. Why do I mention that? Why do I talk about that? Because they are on their biggest transformation journey in their history, from a classical car maker to a provider of e-mobility services. When I talk about our different schools, you'll see why that's relevant. So these are the schools that we have in our area. We have, I'll start from the right, our international school, Braunschweig-Wolfsburg. We cater for 300 students. We have over 40 nationalities. I'll say a few words about that in a minute. And of course, a lot of the students that come and attend our school are from all over the world because they work, their parents work in the industry, and they visit local city of Braunschweig. We are a company that loves to do firsts and do offer innovative education services that no one has done before. So what you see there on the left, the KITA, St. Leonhard International, is what it says on the tin. We have over 30 nations in our KITA International, 105 children who are taught bilingual. So we were the first bilingual KITA in our region. So we use a native immersion method. So every KITA child has 2 to 3 educators in the group. One of them is always a native German speaker, and one is always a native English speaker. And the demand for international education is huge in our area. We could have 400 children in that KITA, so such high is the demand. Our Hans-Georg Karg Primary School, there's been a lot of talk, and I loved the panel discussion earlier around peer-based learning. I would call our model a peer support learning. Our Grundschule in German, our primary school, has been going for over 20 years. And we were the first school to offer Montessori-based pedagogy. So we don't have classical classes in a classic sense, year 1, 2, 3, or 4, but we call them families. So we've got 26 children in one family, and they are from year 1 all the way through to year 4. The only subjects that we teach via the age range are sports, because there is a competitive advantage if you're 4 years older at that age, and maths. But everything else we teach from the year 1 to year 4 in one class. And the results that has are tremendous. So children in our primary school really automatically are on the same eye level, help each other out. It doesn't have to be a guided process as such. Our grammar school, we've always been, it's been going for over 40 years, and we are well known in Germany for being a grammar school for the gifted. So we have special programs for highly gifted children and young people. So for example, 2 years ago, a young student, Mandy Hoffman, she was our youngest ever A-level or IB student in the German Abitur system, for those of you who heard about it. She was 14 years old when she got her Abitur, scored a perfect score of 1.0, which in the IB system would be 45 points. She now studies at the Technical University in Braunschweig, maths and physics. She had to get a particular exemption so that she was allowed into the university because she was so young when she entered. And she'd been with us all the way from the primary school. And I remember the parents, we of course celebrated her achievement, and the parents came up to me and said, you know, we're so grateful that you were able to support her in such an individual way, because at any other school her talent would have gone lost, because she got actually quite disengaged from schooling because everything was so easy for her. Equally, at the same time, I was really proud to congratulate 12 of our Abitur students last year who had joined us in year 5 in a special program which we call project classes. So these are children that were considered dropouts after primary schools. They came from primary schools, parents come to us and say, you are our last resort, you know, our children are being, not being taught, the education system doesn't reach them, we fear they're lost. In the first year of that special program, all we do, really, we have of course a curriculum that we have to follow, we are, you know, accredited by the German government, so we have to follow the curriculum, but we really ensure that the children learn to learn first. They settle in with their peers, they have a support structure around them, and they really are given time to first arrive at school and be comfortable. Only then do we really go into the curriculum side of it. And we realize that even after year 6, so after only 2 years of that program, academically they're on the same level than the other children. So giving them that half year to a year time to learn the learning and do the structure and do the social side of it does not actually lose them any time. A few impressions. So I want to focus a little bit on the international side, and few would perhaps associate this with the regions in Germany. But we are a very, very international community. You can see here, which to us as a schools group and me as a CEO is a really, really good sign that we've got around about half of our student population are either Germans, both parents, and they live permanently in Germany, or they are an international family that will remain in the area. And the reason they choose us, of course, we have all the kind of the curriculum, academic rigor, but they really appreciate the international outlook, the truly global perspective that the children and young people at our school get, and the celebration of all the different cultural events throughout the year, something that in our school is really very different to what the other schools do. You'll see there that we have a wide range of, all in all, over 40 different nationalities, quite a few from China and India, but also other Europeans and American countries. Now, that was the story when everything went as it was supposed to. Early March 2020, probably similar timeline to yourselves as well. Only a week before, we had an all-staff meeting and still said to our 600 staff, you know, don't worry, wash your hands, keep to the hygiene rules. We've got, no one expected it to be coming to a lockdown so quickly. A week later, we were sitting in a crisis mode with my senior leadership team saying, okay, it was a Friday afternoon, the Ministry of Education just announced that on the Monday morning, no kid was allowed in school anymore. And from one minute to the next, we had to switch from what was quite a person-centered, but also very personal approach to education. So our model of success is really built on our teachers and educators. We have 2 people usually in the classroom, a teacher and a teaching support, a professional educator or a social worker or an educational psychologist, of them really knowing their pupils, having very close relationships with them and the parents, having regular meetings. All of a sudden, we couldn't do any of that anymore for an unknown number of weeks. So what did we do? We decided, and this is, I suppose, at least in terms of the speed, the revolutionary bit. When I joined, I have to go back a few years, when I joined as CEO in this role, I asked my heads of all the schools that we had to please hand me in their media concepts. And I opened this first media concept of a great head of school, fantastic head, fantastic team. I opened the media concept and the first line says, the central medium in school will remain the chalkboard. And I was devastated. I was petrified at the task that I may have ahead of me, thinking, I have to modernize this school. And the first line in the media concept says, the chalkboard is central to us teaching. And I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna have some friction here. That was in 2018. This in 2020 was, in that sense, my golden opportunity. And I thought, we have to do this now. We have to do this radical and very, very quickly. Of course, we have about 300 teachers, teaching staff. I didn't want to lose any of them along the way, so it's really important we take them along, but we had to push them, and I had to push them really hard on this, and had to make decisions that were unpopular. But we did it anyway. I coined a transformation program with my team, and we called it Courageously Digital, or Digitally Courageous, which also meant that the parents, and of course, me being a bit, a marketing nerd or liking us having a high profile in the region as well, I knew that parents would call me up on it, so we really had to pull it off. And we did. And we very quickly implemented and equipped all our students with iPads. We have locally 1,200 students. We were one of the last schools or buyers anyway who were able to purchase that amount of iPads, because as you might imagine or might remember back, all of that stuff you couldn't all of a sudden get anymore, you know, supply chains broken and so forth. We did, of course, extensive learning and development for the teaching staff who were still kind of mumbling under their breath, what is he doing here, this isn't right. What really helped, and this is how I got the teachers on board as well, we could build on what worked already. That is a key learning point for me. We had for years developed a learning approach with our students that helped them even from the primary school and in the reception and primary grades in the international school to introduce self-guided studies, to give free space. We call it Campus Live, a time in the morning where I can arrive and I can do my thing. I've got a study time in the afternoon where I'm guided. I've got someone there all the time that will help me, but I have my pace. And we had lots of materials prepared for that as well, but of course they were all paper-based. So we had to digitalize them. This independent learning, of course, had to become the new normal. And I'm not sure if you're here, but I listened to the talk of the Egyptian colleague, or the colleague who was the head in Egypt yesterday, who described a scene at home with one working mum, working from home, having two children, one in reception in front of the Zoom, the other one in year 4, jumping up on the table. It was like that with us as well. We got over that reasonably quickly, of course, but it was a hybrid of analog and digital learning. The point, and this is what I'm going to pick up again later when I talk about the thing that I think we still have to master in the future, really is about the collaborative learning. I think we need to be extremely courageous and really nail this head on that we have to have a focus, a radical focus on the collaboration. That's the only way this is going to work in the future. And I think the working world is already there. Oops, sorry. A few learning takeaways as well. I won't read out all of this, but what we had to, so I thought we had like a gigabit internet connection at our schools. I thought, you know, our infrastructure is great, it works. It does not work when from one day to the next 1,200 pupils do what like 100 pupils do at the same time, or being online, or using the Wi-Fi. We are a school, as I said, we are a non-profit organization, but because in Germany the way the funding works, we have to have part of our fees take from parents. So parents do pay to send their children to us. Depends on their income levels, but they do pay. So you can imagine when these things break down and the Wi-Fi doesn't work, the internet is down for a day or two, there's lots of pressure on us to deliver, particularly and understandably so from parents who are at home thinking, oh God, I've got a breather, I've got 2 hours where my kid is in front of Zoom and you know the teacher will teach them online. When that doesn't work, you are in trouble, and of course the teachers become very insecure in their way of teaching as well. Securely networked campus, so we had to really up our security. Luckily, we have good connections, as I said, to Volkswagen. I could get their IT specialists in to help us out, because the kids, I always knew they were very smart, but they're not only the programmers of tomorrow, they're also the part-time hackers of tomorrow. All sorts of stuff was in our networks that doesn't belong there. And they were, you know, giving each other kudos for that. They were actually quite proud of what they could achieve, how they could get into a network. I got in there so easily. Terrible. So we had to up our game on that as well. Digital equipment, you can't, and this is where I said we needed to be courageous. Also, because I'm of course also responsible for the finance side, we had to take that into consideration. But we decided very early on that we need to go the whole way. You can't just stop at iPads. iPads are critical, of course, and they allow the traditional classroom to be extended much beyond normal learning times, and we've heard some of that already these last couple of days as well. But one other thing that our teachers had to find out, these iPads do not synchronize with the chalkboard. They just don't. So you had to we replaced 80 classrooms, chalkboards. Some of them were still there, so that was a kind of, you know, a trade-off between me and the teaching staff. They could keep the chalkboard, but we just had it to the side of the room. They can still use it in addition. But we replaced all of that with these large screens, which is really important because they actually allow They are the next step for the collaborative learning, because students can share their content, share their ideas, share what they've just worked on instantly with the whole class in the classroom. The other advantage that it had is that we have pupils who are, or who were themselves at risk, so heavy asthma or other conditions that prevented them from coming into school, and parents were really concerned because kids have been at home at that point for half a year or a year, and they could join the class in a kind of hybrid learning model. I spoke a lot about that already. Perhaps ventilation lights. And I don't know what it's like for yourselves, but one word on that. We had huge pressure from parents to install air purification and filters in the classrooms, which are not the solution from my perspective, because A, they're very, very noisy, unless you go for extremely expensive ones. They've got very high follow-on costs. They provide a false sense of security, because airing out is still the best thing that you could do. So we collaborated with a local startup, former students actually, who had built this traffic light system to show students, and students themselves then got up, so kind of flipped classroom. Students said, "Oh, teacher, we have to air out," and so forth. So that works a treat. Now, the open-minded bit, and where do I think we really need to go further? It's been said here these last couple of days, and it really resonates with me, and I couldn't agree more. Teaching in principle, or schooling, I should say schooling, not education, but schooling, hasn't really changed for 200 years. There's one person in front sharing their knowledge. I know I'm being slightly harsh. Of course, there's very innovative concepts, and we're doing some of them ourselves. But really and truly, the nature of teaching, one person imparting knowledge, hasn't really changed. And that's way too passive an approach for the world of today even, let alone for the world of tomorrow. One of the things that is a tightrope to walk on when you foster student expectations, and we say it's okay for you to have expectations, because sometimes their expectations are not consistently realistic, let's put it that way, and it needs to be managed, but it needs to be schooling, and it needs to be a place where it's okay for students to have high expectations. Because we have high expectations of them. They have very high expectations of themselves, sometimes too high, and they put themselves under pressure. But it's okay for students to have expectations of the level of teaching they receive as well, on a personal and social and emotional level, but also on a curricular level. And that does mean, of course, MINT. So all of a sudden it became very, very apparent. And we've maybe got 5 or 6 teachers who I would call lovingly digital dinosaurs who couldn't switch so quickly onto this, and really a lot of extra support. And teachers could show them, students can show them in class. But if the teacher can't deal with it, all of a sudden this relationship has changed. You're teaching me something and I need to be comfortable with that. Then it becomes awkward in the classroom. The extracurricular elements of teaching, as I've mentioned it before, need a lot more focus in future. And we talked about failing and getting up again, and that ability to fail safely. That safe space needs to be the school. Students should feel a home from home. They should feel safe at school, and it needs to be okay to fail, because it's the best way to learn. Some of my biggest learnings come from horrible mistakes I've made, and I'm sure the same goes for you all as well. The teacher's point of view, and I might sometimes be a bit pushy and hard on them, because I think I need to push them to change and to develop on, but I do feel for teachers as well. The role of a teacher nowadays is very different to what the expectation of the teacher was when he went to university, or when he went to the first teaching role, of what he or she was going to do. And I'm not going to answer all these questions now, but maybe they prompt us for some further discussion later on. I also think, and this is a contentious issue in Germany, particularly because we've got very strong, I'm not sure if you know this about Germany, very, very strong culture of trade unions. So every change that I want to implement, I really need to have in mind, I've got a very strong trade union for the area I'm responsible for, and rightly so, and they do check and challenge, and they'll tell me, "Oh, Mr. Chamberlain, I'm not sure if we can do that, we'll have to, confirm that first," and which is a really important function. But one of the issues that I think it brings is that we don't get enough feedback or surveying from the students on our own performance. Like we should feedback each other and survey each other. We should survey students much more regularly. 5, 7 simple questions. How did we do? What could you take away? If we did this again, what could we improve? Let's do it both ways. But that really changes the outlook of a teacher on the world. This picture, I had 2 videos in here. I must admit I had 2 videos in here, but I got scared yesterday, and I'm so I've got so much admiration for Hannah, who really pulled it off yesterday morning as the first keynote speaker over here. But when I saw the videos weren't working, I replaced it with this, which I also think is a great picture. And why am I putting this picture in? Why is this so important? I think this picture shows it. On the left-hand side, you have this traditional VW Bulli T1 from the 1950s, 72 years on. On the right-hand side, you've got the ID bus. It's still a study. It's going to come out in October. And I'm not sure if that's anywhere else, if that's just the kind of the car-crazy Germans, but in Germany, this is a subject of desire for anyone who loves cars. And they've become hugely expensive. And why? Because people connect emotions with it. Back from the days when they were children or young people, it's kind of associated with this free feeling of hippies and so forth. And what VW are doing is they're capturing that feeling, that emotion, and they transfer it into a modern car that's completely, fully digital, that will in future generations be able to drive automated, fully automated. Why am I saying this? Our students need to be able to work, that environment, this company already works in this way. They're working fully collaboratively. Our students come from the chalkboard. Now, I'm overpainting the picture, but there's a huge gap between the learning world and the actual world they're going to get into. And if we don't help them bridge that gap and transfer smoothly, how can we expect them to succeed and have positive first impressions and experiences of themselves at work? So it's really important we help them into that. Cool, super. I'll rush a little bit. I'm almost done. So what do we focus on? As I say, curious minds, fostering a culture of it's okay to fail, fostering a culture of thinking outside the box. Independent cross-curricular learning. We are fostering lots of extracurricular activities where students from all the different schools have opportunity to work with one another from different countries and thereby bring in truly global perspectives. Does that go far enough? I don't think so. I think we should enable every young learner to develop their true potential and reach for their stars. I think a really good teacher will say, well done, student, go reach for the stars. The sky is the limit. I think a great teacher will say, well done, reach for the stars. There is no limit to what you can achieve. We have to do so with courage and integrity to get to a modern, inclusive society. And we do need to be role models of that. That also means that we also have to handle our own failure. This one anecdote. I was invited to be the keynote speaker at our IB ceremony last year. And I thought long and hard about whether I'm going to do this or not. And I tore up my speech that I prepared the night before. And I was flying by the seat of my pants because I literally just got the speech done on the day. And why? Because I'd last minute decided to be brave enough myself to talk to the students about the biggest failure that I've had, the biggest professional failure in my life. Where I was in a room full of people, not dissimilar to today, but I was a consultant, had to prepare a final report. And I was being asked by my boss to present something to the client that I couldn't believe in. So I went blank in a meeting of very, very important people in my line of work, in my world at the time. And I had to leave the room. I was literally frozen. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to speak to the pupils about that. I'm going to share that with them. I mean, it goes back to the point of confidence and self-belief being a superpower. And that really opened a different relationship to the children and students. And I think that's the kind of level that true integrity and role modeling includes being that open with them as well. So yes, I hope I left you with a few ideas, a few impulses to think further. And I think I'll leave it there. I'll be happy to take some questions. Thank you very much.
Are you German, Mr. Chamberlain? You are. Because Chamberlain. Because Chamberlain is not very,
it's not a very
German.
name, no.
Any questions for Mr. Chamberlain?
As opposed to my looks, which are very German.
9?
9? When does he present the next award?
Sorry? Oh, just
That's
in.
the question. When do I present the next
When
award?
do you present the next award? Is Mr. Kirk presenting the next award? There's one. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirk Chamberlain. My question quickly, I know you showed the slide with all the different types of schools, right? Mm-hmm. But also in the first slide, there was aspects of technical, vocational, and all sorts of different things, career-related, that you do, basically.
Yes.
And now, of course, yeah, with different locations also. So what's the coordination amongst all, so how do you operate? Basically, that's my main question. Across the different entities within the schools, but also the other aspects that you target, whether it's technical, vocational, or the career aspect, or there's a slide also that had mentioned that, yeah. So what's governance like, basically?
What's what like, sorry?
What's the governance, like
see.
operation-wise? Because it's also important as far as quality assurance is concerned, right? Because obviously for you to be this successful, it means you are keeping to standards and all of that. And I am aware of also the German model of the technical vocational education, which has also, I think, been adopted in parts of the world. In Kenya also, I'm aware that they have adopted a similar system. So generally here, where you are in Germany now, how do you coordinate all of that, basically? Yes.
You've put your fingers on the right spot
especially
there.
from a monitoring and also the quality assurance, basically,
So the truth is that we are a hugely complex organization, and we manage it in two different ways. So we have a line of reporting, and then we have a matrix organization. So we are accredited by DIN ISO, which is the kind of German European standard. And we have, of course, external quality assurances. So our international school will get accredited by Cambridge and IB, but we've got loads of different accreditations going on throughout the year. One of the biggest challenges for us, I suppose, is that as an organization, we've grown very organically. So as I've said, we're 75 years old, and each individual organization, even each school, has grown vertically, so to speak. So, in itself is a very strong profile, but that also means that the work I have to do with the leadership team in adapting the culture is getting them to work a lot more amongst each other and more peer-to-peer as a senior leadership team as well. The way of working that we're used to know is to put the questions and answers and the challenges and solutions kind of from the delivery level to the chief exec and down, and what I get them to do is say, have you asked your colleagues that same question? So, but that does take a lot of energy, and it is quite a complex model. Yeah, we have a senior leadership team of around about 30 people who report to me.
Okay. And sorry, just one more follow-up question. And how does the cooperation happen between yourselves, the industry like Volkswagen, and then also the government of Germany itself? Yeah, because it's very important that there's a harmonization among the three segments, right? You, the education, are providing for the industry, but still being regulated and basically coordinated by government also, of which also some of those graduates still go to government also and serve at that level.
Quite a lot of the requirements in terms of education in the government is devolved down to us. So they hold us into account, they will come and visit, they can come unannounced at any point and sit in the class and check, but we don't, it's not like an ongoing task for us. We know the standards, we know what we have to adhere to, so we implement that on a day-to-day basis, part of our running of our school. And we have internal quality assurance teams that do audits and stuff internally. But as a division, I've got like divisional senior leaders, executive directors, if you like, that report into me. And each director has like a subject area that she or he leads.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your experience with the CJD group.